releasing full albums works on a physical level, but on the streaming,
Mm.
I honestly think it's tough to get that many people to actually listen to the whole thing top to bottom.
How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? It's Nasipi Zwane back with another episode of Sledge Underground Podcast. And today I'm super excited. I've got Andrew Jed joining me on the show. This is an artist that has over 250 monthly listeners on Spotify. This is an artist that has over 75,000 obviously streams on Spotify. And we're going to be diving a bit deeper into that, obviously, as we go on to the show. But before we start, I just want to thank you for tuning into the episode, and do remember to support the show by checking out all our links in the relevant descriptions and links in bios. So to basically kick off this interview to what I've just said, Andrew, obviously 75,000 streams is not a small number. So how did you actually go about achieving such high numbers?
Oh, wow. Okay, thank you. I mean, obviously, Spotify streaming online is such an interesting sort of way to gauge, you know, how people are consuming your music. A big thing for me, honestly, is I've gotten into the licensing music and songs into film and television over the years of doing my music. And so a lot of times when a song will air on an ad or on an MTV show or something in a different country, I'll
Yeah.
notice an uptick in listeners in that particular region. So a lot of it is actually through the realm of songs being placed in film and TV and ads and whatnot.
That's absolutely brilliant. Hey, what would you say the process is of actually sort of doing something like that? You're mentioning ads and TV, something that a lot of artists maybe don't really get to experience much. So, what is sort of like the behind the scenes sort of take and approach when it comes to doing that?
Oh yeah, I mean, so uh, it is definitely a very interesting subject, one that I'm super keen to talk to any artist about. I In essence, um, the initial thing is obviously got to be about relationships, and who you get in contact with that are either on those shows or editing those shows, and that sort of becomes then about maybe working with agents who ultimately pick you up in what you're doing, and then start pitching you to bigger and bigger budget kind of stuff and stuff that's around the world. But it really largely starts in doing, like what you're doing right now. What we're doing right now is at figuring out how to develop a home studio, how to be able to record, your songs from your own space, and mix them and edit them, and just getting into the world of figuring out how to do it yourself, so you're not paying an engineer and a producer, and you're not waiting and waiting and waiting to figure out the right moment, to record the song you've been working on. You'd be amazed at the kind of music that gets licensed, and sort of the quality of what gets licensed. A lot of time they're looking for really rough and raw tracks.
Mm.
So at the very beginning, it starts with picking up some recording software, figuring out how to do it yourself, and building your own personal catalog. And then slowly you start to
Mm.
learn a little bit more about the industry ins and outs, rights, how much money can be made, that kind of a thing.
It's very beautiful. The whole music making process is it's an organic thing because obviously it stems from the passion and wanting to make the music. And then obviously the numbers would sort of be like a byproduct of that, once you get the music going and once you release. But now looking at the significance, you mentioned the numbers and the metrics of like the Spotify and stuff, sort of being like a measurement type thing, where you get to gauge and see, how well the song is doing or how it's performing and such. Would you
Yeah.
say it's very beneficial, sort of, looking at numbers? How much importance should we actually place on numbers? Because sometimes you'll find that an artist will be brilliant at what they do, but the numbers don't necessarily reflect, how good they are.
Yeah. I mean, listen, that's the story of music. That's the story of music. Any musician listening to this podcast, um, you know, just know that that's the story of it, and it has been forever. Right now, the way people receive music, well, back in the day, it was received, in concerts and things like that, and then it was received on vinyl, and then music was absorbed through 8 tracks, which nobody has anymore. Then it was absorbed through CDs, and then all of a sudden streaming took over, and that's just how music is absorbed. And it's how you meet your audience, unless you're doing live shows. And any artist throughout history faces the whole thing of like, I'm a brilliant artist, and how come nobody is listening to me? Those are things that are really hard to gauge. So streaming, though, one of the things streaming has done, it's two things. It has allowed people all over the world to hear your stuff, but it means that the market is super saturated, that there's gajillions of people doing it, and so it's easy to either appear like white noise, uh, and not feel like you're having, fans engage with you, which is actually the ultimate goal. You want people absorbing your music, and it's a little bit more difficult through just streaming platforms to gauge that audiences are actually engaging with your songs. With streaming right now, there's no system in place to really accurately monetize
Yeah.
what's happening. So this is just a real struggle. My other kind of concept, which I think I really want to express to artists, is you have to be aware when paying attention to how many streams you have. Like
Mm.
I personally, to be honest and real, I don't feel like I've got that many streams. And I do kind of wonder, but I think people are engaging with my songs. So are you building fans or are you just building listens? What do you
Mm.
want as an artist? Do you want to build fans, which I think this is, what we're after, building people who are actually into what you are doing and waiting for the next song, as opposed to listens. Listens are fun. Ending up on playlists are fun. You can
Yeah.
pay to do that. You can pay
Mm.
money to promoters and stuff to do that. But what we really want is to build fans and build people who are into what we're doing and waiting for the next thing. And that is something that metrics that you see on social media or streaming audio aren't an accurate gauge for.
Mm,
My
I
thought.
absolutely love that I love that you brought up the monetization there, and I love that you brought up, just building up, that engagement and people engaging with your stuff, sort of carrying a bit more weight, because it goes back to what I was saying in the introduction as well, in that you've got over 200 people listening to your music every single month. Those are people that keep coming back. Those are people that discover the stuff and come back to listen, and they stay there. So
Yeah.
for you, how do you actually achieve that? Because that is something that I haven't seen, with some of the other artists that we've had on the show. You'll find that the streams are very high, but monthly listenership would be at about 50, 60 people, even
Hmm.
lower. So with you, how have you gone about creating that community and sort of maintaining it the way that you have?
I don't know. Uh, uh, I mean, look, in music, there's a million things you ought to do, and you're lucky if you do five of those. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, it comes down to the song, right? You want to strive to have good songs and good production because that's what people
Yeah.
jive with, right? That's what people connect to. So if you're constantly pushing yourself as an artist to write good songs, good material,
Mm.
you know,
Yeah.
then you're going to build people who will come back to it because we all want to listen to a song, feel a song that connects with us, and we will continue to have that moment. Um,
Mm.
there's a lot of things that obviously the modern music industry says have constant content going on your social media platforms. YouTube channels are super important, and those are things that I'm terrible at. So maybe there's something good happening in my songwriting. Um,
Yeah.
and then, of course, listen, I think one of the things probably when I gauge it for me is, yeah, having songs on those TV shows, having songs on ads that are, you know, and I know this is sexy talk for musicians. We want that. How do I get my song on an MTV show? And we touched
Yeah.
on it earlier. Because the stuff that spins constantly, and maybe I've had a little bit of luck in that, but it's been a lot of years of relationships. But those years go by
Yeah.
quick, by the way. People talk about, oh, it takes a lot of years. Man, those years go by quick. Before you know it,
Mm.
you've built something that you didn't even realize you did.
Touching on the monetization aspect that you also touched on briefly there, would be, obviously streaming doesn't always equate to, as you said, profits and lots of
Mhm.
money and such. The streaming numbers might be high, but the pockets might say otherwise. So with
For
sort of
sure.
being a musician and being sort of like doing music full time type thing,
Mhm.
how what are sort of some of the ways to mitigate that and sort of make a living out of music if streaming isn't the way to go?
Listen, this is something that I'm passionate about, and that's discussing with artists how money actually flows in the music, and
Mm.
especially with independent artists. Because as an independent artist, theoretically, you have the
Yeah.
most opportunity to actually make income off of your music. At the same time, what being signed to a label does is it gives you a broader reach. Theoretically, we can. That's a whole other podcast discussion. Um,
Yeah.
Basically, as a songwriter, uh, if you write the song, if you write the music, you are entitled to, the majority of what that song can earn. The other way a song will make money is through the actual recording. So you have these two parts. You've got, I'm the songwriter, this is this portion, and then the actual physical recording, or at this point, streaming recording, something you went in the studio and did, also earns
Yeah.
money. The question is, what do you own? What do you have control over? As an independent artist, you usually have both sides. I feel like I'm gonna like fight or something. Um, so as a songwriter, you're entitled to, a full hand's worth
Yeah.
of money. So that comes through streaming. That comes through a license in a TV show. That comes through radio. Um, the other part that makes money is the recording. Now, if you are able
Mm.
to be in control of that actual recording, the thing you went in the studio to do, you make money
Yeah.
from that too. So that is where money is generated from a song, from a recording. It is through being a songwriter. Now, there are avenues in music where this kind of can get, being a songwriter, but this can get stripped away. Your publisher takes some. Maybe you've got a deal with a record company. Maybe you have another songwriter on the track. Next thing you know, this is yours, right? Don't let that stop you, though. Don't let that stop you from doing this because 100% of nothing is still nothing. You know, um, so and then the other avenue, of course, is super important to making money through your music and to building fans is through live performances, which
Okay.
always are disappointing in their pay, but it's what we do. And
Yeah.
then merchandising. Look, I'm wearing a Grateful Dead T-shirt. People having you've got your sludge, beanie. That's what we call it in the U.S.
Yeah.
on. And what that is that's like, hey, I like this artist or I like this podcast. I'm gonna wear their brand, and therefore
Mm.
keep reminding myself and others that that's what it is. So merchandising. Obviously, though, we're in a time where we can't sell physical CDs or people are actually selling vinyl at shows. If you can
Mm.
afford to press vinyl, you'll find a market for that at your shows, which is bonkers to me.
Mm.
And South Africa still is one of the only countries I know of where people still buy CDs, which is really
Mm.
kind of cool.
Yeah.
But understand at the root of it, understand artists that songwriting, being the songwriter, you have control. Well, you have control, and you have the avenue to making money
Mm.
from your songs. If you are the songwriter and can and registered as such. And then these other
Awesome.
platforms of how people receive music, radio, TV, um, that's how the money gets into your hand. But as a
Mm.
songwriter, this is yours.
Very, very beautiful, Jade. And I like what you said there when you mentioned, in America, you guys call them beanies, and you're surprised that in South Africa we're still selling CDs and such. I want to know about the connection to South Africa because I want to give us a quick shout out to Genevieve as well for
Yeah,
Indie Does It PR because they're the ones who actually arranged and made this interview possible. So how did that South African link sort of come about?
I live in Pretoria. Currently, I'm in Cape Town, which is awesome. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, my family, we love it here. The country is amazing, and my family and I came out here. Um, for the first time we lived here was almost 10 years ago, and then we moved away, and we've come back, and it's connected to what my wife does as far as some global health and humanitarian work, and then
Okay.
here's the other thing, being in the music industry nowadays.
Yeah.
um, you can be anywhere in the world if you have a laptop, if you've got recording software. I mean, I could be in America right now. I could be, in Dubai. Nobody would know. I mean, some of the best music that has done the best for me, I recorded out of my guest room in my apartment in Santa Monica years ago. And it's, was on an ad in Ireland for the longest time. So that's the way it is now. Y'all get recording software and you can be anywhere in the world.
But I'm looking at sort of like the single that I sort of was touching on, a bit earlier, that you had released, and I saw Genevieve sent this in the emails, and it was like, it's bluegrass that you're tackling. What sort of made you sort of experiment with that sort of sound? Because as I say, that seemed to be a lot more different than the initial stuff that you'd been doing.
Yeah, okay. So a little bit of, I guess, sorry, maybe I give too much backstory, but I've been in the industry for a long time. So
Yeah.
back in my university days, I was in a band, and this was before. Jeez, are we supposed to say? kind of give references to how old we might be. But we got people to know about a band by passing out posters and flyers, and and grew that classic organic way, getting in a van and touring the country. At that time, the band I was in was largely influenced by what would refer to as bluegrass or even Americana music was having sort of a renaissance in the US at the time. You were
Yeah,
getting really great bands doing lots of cool instrumentation with things like fiddles and mandolins and banjos, but they weren't like hoedown kind of stuff. I
yeah,
like to think of my music not as hoedown. My bluegrass stuff is not hoedown, but it is road trip music. It is music festival kind of music. So I
yeah,
was in that band, and we had those elements, but still focused on songwriting in a kind of in a popish kind of way. That band
mm,
ended, as so many bands do. So if you're experiencing that artist, it's not the end of your career. Okay, it might be emotionally
mm,
tough, but it's not the end. So then I moved to LA. I was in Colorado, if you know the US at all. I was in Colorado, so it was like that Rocky Mountain, almost country, but fun vibes.
yeah,
Went to LA, and that's when I fell into understanding about music licensing. And so I started writing songs influenced by where I was, that still had a fun vibe, but maybe had a little bit more Jason Mraz, Jack Johnson, ukulele vibes, and
yes,
fun, I'm feeling good. As time developed and music styles changed and I started moving around the world, yeah, I absorbed that. But, the other thing is, I think during kind of the pandemic period, we all got a bit nostalgic. So I started really thinking back to that music that I was loving back in the day. And I really wanted to get back to experiencing that, and creating that and creating. Uh, the other thing about that music is it's very instrument heavy. It's very
okay,
riff heavy. It's very musician heavy. And so you're writing
yeah,
songs that are really on actual music that you're creating, and guitar lines and or mandolin lines or bluegrass. So at the core of bluegrass music, you have artists exchanging ideas live. Now,
yeah,
I'm all the artists. When you listen to my songs, with the exception of the version I did with Dan Petlansky playing guitar,
yeah, mm,
I'm doing all the other instrumentation in that song. So I'm trying to almost fake you out into thinking, there's these different artists trading solos, and having this musical exchange. So I really missed that, and maybe that could have been because we were all locked up in our houses. Um,
yeah,
and that's something that's very characteristic of bluegrass or American roots music. It's this interplay between artists on stage. So I started to kind of delve down that road, and that's particularly what drew me back to this. Again, not hoedown, not campy, but
yeah.
artist driven. You take a solo, then you take a solo, and then I sing a bit, and then here's another person here, almost like you're moving back and forth around the microphone. Let somebody else
Mm.
have a moment. Although I'm the person doing it all because I'm self-centered.
Yeah, I love how you mentioned obviously doing the Dan Patlansky obviously version of Panama City, and he's an absolutely brilliant guitarist, one of the best guitarists in the country. How was it actually working with him, and how much importance would you place on collaboration in the music
Ooh,
industry?
you're asking the best questions, man. Um, Dan is the coolest dude. He really is. Not only is he, um, I mean, I would say he's one of the best blues guitarists in the world. Like
Mm,
you have South Africa, in him, and in a lot of your artists, actually, some of the best in the world. And I know it can feel
mm,
like you're on an island sometimes, way down here. And how do you reach? So Dan was great to work with. We met at a gig that I was brought on for with him, and just kind of hit it off musically, stories, all that stuff. And I am a big fan of collaboration. That's how the U.S. music industry is what it is. It's artists getting together to try stuff together, and that's celebrated in towns like Nashville, L.A., New York, where they have shows where you get three or four artists to sit on stage and they play their songs in a row, this artist,
yeah,
then this artist, and then even it's allowed that you can kind of jam on a tune while the other person's playing, or rap on a
yeah,
tune while and it's just like it creates this energy of collaboration. And
mm,
the truth of collaboration. So now we're talking about collaboration, which I'm a big believer in.
Mm.
is sometimes it's useless. Sometimes you don't get anything out of it. We all think, oh, if I'm going to invest the time into writing a song, I want a hit out of it, or I want to be able to release it. Nah, man, that's not,
Yeah.
it's unfathomable how many unreleased songs there are. I have a ton, and you
Mm.
know it. But what you've done is you've created a musical connection with another artist. You've gotten a new idea that
Yeah.
you can experiment with and you can bring into your next thing. So collaboration is massive. Plus, it's easy. I mean, I have a studio in my house, and again, I want to keep harping on this idea for you artists. Go down that road, and you can start with headphones and GarageBand or whatever.
Mm.
You don't have to have the speakers in the soundproofing situation. Records
Yeah.
nowadays are being done in people's houses. And then on top of that, Dan didn't come into my studio to record. He recorded at his place. He sent me the file. I edited into the song. It sounds like we were in the same room, but we weren't, you know? A lot of collaborations that you hear, with a rapper and some artist, I bet they've never met, like probably even in person. But I have a relationship with Dan, and I mean, I'm honored to call him a buddy. I hope he feels the same way. And and that just feels good when you find an energy and a flow. And I think he enjoyed playing in a slightly different style than he normally does.
In 2023 right now, would it be more
Yeah.
viable to drop an album or a single, considering that you have been dropping sort of singles leading up, to today?
Yeah. So what I would say to any artist is do what you want to do, man. If you have a song, drop it. But if you feel like you've got a body of songs, then theoretically you could wait. What I really wanted to do with Silver Star is I wanted to craft an album. I wrote more songs than what are on that album. But I wanted to create an album almost like in the 70s, right? When
Yeah.
even in the 90s, whatever, when there's a story that's woven not just in an individual song but through all the songs. And I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
I did that when I approached the mixing for the record. I wanted a kind of a 70s feel. You can mix a
Yeah.
song a million different ways. So artists, do what you feel like you want. If you have a body of work, if you want to challenge yourself to create an album. The thing is, people
Mm.
don't really listen to full albums anymore unless they buy vinyl. And
Yeah.
I think CDs will make a return too. But right now it's vinyl. So that tells me, hey, people are paying attention. There is an audience, and that audience has money, that want to hear the thread, the story the artist wants to tell. But for my upcoming songs, my plan is for the most part to drop it as singles. It's an album, it would be an album concept. I've got a lot of material I'm currently recording, writing stuff I'm insanely excited about, super duper excited about, and I hope that people are too. But my plan is to drop them as singles monthly, basically to keep consistent. I'm recording my sixth or seventh song right now, but
Yeah.
I think for right now, I want to test the waters and see what happens if I release a concept album, but like a song a month. So have them finished and then schedule the releases, and maybe that builds momentum. If you build a fan, maybe you'll have two fans on the next release. But it's not, you're not releasing one song and then that's all you've got,
Yeah.
and then it's another year before another song. That's not
Mm.
how, that's not how you build a sustainable career, by releasing one song and having no more, you know. And not every song. I mean, I sat in the office one time with a dear friend who was, part of launching Katy Perry, as a
Mm.
publicist. Again, Genevieve, thanks. Um,
Yeah.
and she was telling me, if you have one hit song in your name, that's great. Most hit songwriters have, compared to how many they've written, one or two, and that's amazing. So keep plugging away. Not every song you're going to write is great. Anyway, this is a roundabout saying, I do believe in the full album. I think there's a space for it, but I just don't think, sadly, we are in an area where the masses are wanting. They want to hear a full album, but then they don't. Then they don't listen
Mm.
to a full album. I don't know when I
Yeah.
have, but you know, uh, when I hear one or two songs from an artist that I like, then I
Yeah.
dive into their catalog. Like you said, oh,
Mm.
I've heard stuff back in 2008. Yeah,
Mm.
but you started with that, Panama City, right? The
Mm.
the most recent.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you can build up that backlog of songs, and then
Yeah.
fans are pulling out, oh my gosh, but did you hear this song that this artist did back in 2011? Wow, I resonated
Mm.
with that one. So that's what you want
Mm.
to be after. But you know,
Mm.
releasing full albums works on a physical level, but on the streaming,
Mm.
I honestly think it's tough to get people, that many people, to actually listen to the whole thing top to bottom. Who does that?
Mm.
Who does that?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Can you give us any dates in terms of, the what you were talking about there, releasing a single, every month? When can we sort of expect the first single to drop?
Well, it's a tricky time. Because I could release a song or two within the next couple months, but
Mm.
it's Christmas time. So
Oh,
at the point of this podcast, right? It's getting
yeah.
on Christmas time. So all the stuff, and again, I'm in the film and TV world with my music as well. So I'm starting to get, hey, is there a Christmas song that says this? Is there a Christmas song that does this? Is there a Christmas? Right now, people are starting to get into holiday mode, you know.
Yes.
And when you're writing a song that is not holiday at all, you're like, oh, do I release it or do I wait till January? I like my
Mm.
songs. I don't want to wait till January to release them. And it's not like people are exclusively listening to holiday songs, Mariah Carey
Yeah.
for the next 3 months. They want to
Yeah.
hear some Andrew Jedd in there too. Uh, so I don't know, man. You tell me, when should I release the next Andrew Jedd song?
Damn. If it's not going to be a Christmas theme, then I'd say maybe looking at next year, like next year, first thing,
Well,
maybe
that's
January, February or so. Because you're absolutely right about, the whole Christmas thing. Like, honestly, if you're not going to be doing like a Christmas theme song, then I'd say beginning of next year would sound quite right. Unless you release it like now,
yeah.
like just before, to warm the people up to maybe anything Christmassy that you might be releasing. Who
Yeah,
knows?
well, I have Christmas songs. I do have a lot of Christmas songs. I love writing Christmas songs. They're so fun.
Nice.
Uh,
What's
and here in
the
South
give
Africa,
me
you experience a very different kind of Christmas than in the U.S. There's no snow. You're at the beach, So I have a ridiculous. You're in Durban, right?
Yes,
Is
yes,
that
I
where you?
am. Yeah,
I have
yeah.
one of my favorite fun Christmas songs is called "Surf with Santa," um, and it's super fun. It is basically about Christmas in the Southern Hemisphere, and even I teamed up with a guy who shoots surf videos down in Durban, and I was like, "Hey, man, do you want to put together like a kind of a cool montage of surfing to this Surf with Santa Christmas song?" He's like, "Yeah." So there's some cool footage of some kids surfing, and uh, but it's fun to get on themes of just like holiday. I mean, it's getting ideas, right? It's
Yeah.
all right. What are some words I can throw in there? Snow, party, cocktails, whatever. Beach, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Is that sort of like a little blueprint or like a checklist when it comes to writing the perfect Christmas song? You just throw down words that
There is formula, y'all. There is formula, and that's the other thing. So I did want to mention two things are important as songwriters. And again, I want to pump the songwriting thing. I want to pump
Yeah.
the learning how to record yourself thing. Just do it.
Mm.
Um, and listen to a lot of music. Listen to a lot of music
Mm.
and listen to how it's recorded. Listen to the production elements. Listen to
Mm.
where things sit in the mix. And fans, that's super fun to do because when you put a set of headphones on and you hear one of your favorite artists, you're going to hear a whole lot more going on. And those were decisions made in the studio. The artist wanted that weird sound, that weird instrument in that one moment. So listen, listen,
Mm.
listen. And also read. Read books, read articles because words get into your head, right?
Mm.
Without you realizing it. Right now
Yeah.
I'm reading a lot of kind of classic American westerns and road trip kind of books. So those words are
Mm.
getting into my head and I'm picking up things that I never would have thought of, right?
Yeah.
So same with Christmas stuff, holiday stuff, absolutely those words are out there and there's no copyright on language.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about South African hip hop in
Mm.
particular, and artists in South Africa that are doing hip hop, is they're pulling words from like 12 different languages. It's unbelievable. I mean, even your national anthem is
Yeah.
uh, all languages. People can't even sing the whole thing all the way through. Um, it's I love that pulling words from different languages, sometimes making up words. Like
Mm.
that's awesome. You've got resources. There's no copyright against words. So absorb
Mm.
as much as you can, and that will come out in your songwriting in really cool ways, like the Christmas stuff, like the
Yeah.
formulaic, what people want to hear, bells and chimes and singing about my baby, singing about I'll be home, I'll be there. It's
Mm.
all that stuff is just pure holiday. I'll be there.
Honestly, this is some of the best advice I've heard any artist drop on the show. Honestly, Jed, I cannot thank you enough for that. That was really
Yeah.
important. And I really hope that anyone that's listening to this did pick up a few tips from there. I'm going to be getting your handles just now, but I do want to give a special shout out to Genevieve and Indie Does It for
Yeah,
arranging this
for
interview.
sure.
What is sort of the best thing about working with Genevieve and Indie Does It?
Oh man, I mean, she's just wonderful. She's able to reach out to such interesting interviewers on such wonderful platforms, and it's wonderful to have a great networker. Gosh, always got to have networkers on your team. Um,
Yeah.
she's done a lot over and beyond. Even what she said she could do. All of a sudden, someone will pop up. She's like, "Hey, can you do this interview? Can you do this radio
Yeah.
spot? Can you be at the studio here?" Or she'll try to work it around a tour schedule, or maybe you've got shows somewhere. Hey, can you pop into this radio station? And
Yeah.
y'all musicians, that's fun. When you can, that's the sexy cool stuff you want to do as an artist. You go and talk to someone about what you do. So that happens with a publicist. And I'm
Mm.
I'm grateful to her, and you're grateful to her too, as being able to
Mm.
connect you to your content. So
Mm.
if you're a
Mm.
podcaster, if you're wanting to write for music rags, being able to connect to the artist, that'll help you with your stories. That's great.
100%. Massive, massive shout out to her and everything she does. Andrew, I want to thank you so much for joining me on the show. If anyone wants to contact you or get in touch, support your music, follow you online, what are your social media handles and links and all that there?
Yeah, dude. So you can. There's not a lot of Andrew Jeds in this world. Um,
Yeah.
so Instagram, please join me on Instagram at andrewjedstagram.com. So like Instagram, but with my name at Andrew Jed, and that's AndrewJed. So at Andrew Jedstagram. Facebook is I think Andrew Dash Jed. See, I'm not as on point with this, but YouTube is Andrew Jed, and actually, what I'm going to do with my upcoming music, which maybe, bro, I'll take your advice and launch it all in Jan. But I'm gonna probably revamp my YouTube channel. I'm a
Mm.
big believer in the lyrics that I'm writing, and then all the music that I'm producing that's coming from my studio that I'm playing on. So on my YouTube channel coming up, I'm going to do sort of personalized lyric videos for my
Nice.
songs. So as you hear the songs, I mean, a lot of my songwriting is a lot of interesting wordplay and comes at you pretty fast sometimes. So I really
Yeah.
want listeners to engage with the words I'm writing. So on my YouTube channel, which is Andrew Jed, you can always search for me. You can find me. Um, I will be having a lot more lyric videos to new songs as well as old songs or songs that have been on TV shows. Maybe it's good insight into why it might have ended up on that show. For you artists, you
Mm.
can hear, oh, it was in a sentimental moment on this show, and look at this song. It's very sentimental. And, you know, Instagram
Mm.
handle is the biggest thing for me at Andrew Jedstagram. And, it's me personally. You're going to see me. So,
Hey, that is very brilliant. I want to thank you one more time, man. I really appreciate you joining me on the show, taking time aside to drop all these gems that you gave us in this episode and your journey and such. I'm definitely looking forward to the single releases and everything that you're going to be doing in future. So thank you so much for that. And thank you to the audience and anyone that's been tuning into this
yeah.
episode. It's been another epic one. Catch the episode on our website, www.sludgeunderground.com. It's also on YouTube as well. We are at Sludge Underground on absolutely every single platform, Instagram, Facebook, X, whatever, we're there. Until next time, do remember to support the show. The best way that you can support the show is by getting merch. It's all in the link in the description. Until next time, it is bye for now.
Put a pretty little finger on the trigger and shot me down.